Hey, hello.
No, I am so sorry.
That's all right. How
I've
you
been sat
doing?
here doing. Oh, blimey, what have I done there?
Yeah. You've
Well,
gone
it's
all
very nice. I do like the Northern Light. Hang on, how do I
you've
get
gone
that on?
all ethereal. No, leave it. It's cool.
Oh no, that would be really annoying. How on earth do I get rid of that? Wow. I shall get rid of it as we go. That is very bizarre. Wow, what on earth have I? Is it an AI companion? I do apologize. I've been sat here hanging on, like waiting. And I didn't realize my kitchen clock has stopped. So
Oh,
when you buzzed me, and I'm thinking, oh, I've still got 10 minutes yet. So
there
I
so there isn't a clock on your computer.
there is a clock on my computer, but I didn't have my computer. I didn't need my computer on yet because I had another 10 minutes. So I've
Oh,
just been pottering and making myself a cup of coffee. And
mm.
how are you?
Uh, well, I have to say I've had different days. Um, you know,
You had a
better, easier
tough old
times.
time.
Yeah, it's been a bit challenging, I have to say, you know. But yeah,
You
I'm all
have been
right.
Saturn returning, haven't you?
No, no, that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, but
No, I had uh Saturn was conjunct my Chiron and opposing my Pluto here a couple of weeks ago. So, and I did a in-depth forecast for myself and videoed it in as the year turned, and I sent it out to a few people, and I said, there's a death potential mid-Feb to mid-March, and I passed it. I've got through it, so I'm still here.
yeah, I'm a big believer in just leaving them as potentials. They're potentials, but they don't have to be.
Well, indeed, that's the idea, isn't
That's the
it?
joy of
There's a
astrology, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a polysemy within the meanings, and we can, to a certain extent, we can have an effect on which ones we draw to the surface. It's all co-creative stuff, isn't it? You know, and
Yeah, and I honestly, I mean, I've spent a lot of time with Judith Hill doing medical astrology, and I'm a big believer in taking, preventative action. You see these things on the horizon, and I'd rather see it as I've had a lot of lymphatic issues, and things like that. And I saw them coming a long way off. But it's like, okay, so as before you come into it, you do all the preventative stuff for that. So I'm doing qigong and yoga, and I see a herbalist, I see an acupuncturist, so that when you get to that point, that critical point, it's just a little bump in the road. It's not like a
mm,
major catastrophe. And I'm a big
mm.
believer in.
Yeah, I don't know if you know that when you were one of my students, I used to drink like a person with four planets in Pisces, and towards the end of 2019, I had a little look at my transits coming up over the next period of time. And I thought, oh, Pluto's going to be square my Venus, and Venus rules my sixth house. So then I thought I better sort this out. So I did an NHT session with a friend sitting in to kind of give me, I guess, a sense of self-discipline, really support. And after that one session 4 years ago, I haven't touched a drop of alcohol since.
Yeah,
Uh,
I haven't drunk for 11 years,
Yeah,
no,
completely
14 years.
teetotal. But but that was just after doing just one therapy session with myself, and I
Yeah.
had no withdrawal symptoms at all. So that's cool. You know,
I it's
I did it
it's
with cigarettes in '95, and I did it with alcohol 4 years ago. So and that's because I saw in advance what was coming health wise, and so I took preventative measures more than a year and a half beforehand to kind of start, preparing. Yeah.
How's your house move coming? Are
Sorry?
you how's your house move? Are you settled? Are you feeling a bit more settled? Yeah.
Oh, no, no, it's chaos. I've got problems with my hands. I've got arthritis in this knuckle now, and if I hold a pen, it hurts like mad. When I do that, it really hurts. This hand has got permanent pins and needles in it. Makes playing a guitar very difficult. I've only tried that
Mm.
once, but it's really hard for me to actually unpack things and maneuver boxes around. And so I'm
Do you
waiting.
know, Carl had that after his chemo, and acupuncture has massively helped
Right.
him.
Well, I'll think about it. But I'm in a state where I'm kind of waiting for friends to be free to come round. And so there are kind of long period, what seem like long periods of time between helping hands popping round. Um, but I like it,
But
you
you're
know.
happy with the house and everything, the place, and
Yeah. There's a magic little garden out here.
I've seen it.
And
It
if I,
looks fantastic.
yeah, you just poke your head round the corner and there's a white horse right on the hillside. And so it's within line of sight of the main ley line that runs from Avebury to Stonehenge.
Yeah, you have a knack of landing on those.
Well, last time I didn't. I was further away from it. I felt it as well. I missed it. You know, people say, "Oh, this is a lovely house right in the heart of the village," and I'm like, "Yeah, you know, it's got no magic in it. It's got no vibe. There's no thing. This has
It's
got
not alive.
the buzz back. Yeah, yeah. So when I moved to Beckhampton, someone said to me, "This will wear you out after 2 years. You won't be able to stay for long." But I just lapped it up. You know, it's got a load of Aries in my fourth house. So to me, it's like, yeah, bring it on,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm like that here as well. And someone
Yeah,
said
but
to me,
Aries is like it's crash and burn. You just it's
yeah,
it's like, yeah, you can go, 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 and then when you stop, it's like, whoa, it's
yeah,
like
I know.
rough.
People said, can you feel the buzz where you live? I say no, but I can feel the absence of it when I leave.
Mm.
You know, when I drive out of the Avebury area and I maybe go as far away as Marlborough or to the distant lands of Devizes, it's different. It feels different. It feels like, yeah, so what? There's a town, there's a road, there's a duck pond, there's a thing, there's all these nice things, but they're all so what? But as
So
soon as I
difficult.
come here, everything feels like it's more vibrant.
So difficult to try and explain that to people as well, isn't it? It's like I messaged my daughter this morning, my youngest, and said, I don't know, are you feeling this? Because I am so out of sorts that I don't know where to put myself. And I think the last time I felt that, typically it's things like just before the Charlie Hebdo attack, or just before we had like the Tal volcano and there's lots of geomagnetic energy. And I'm like literally and you try and explain that to people, like there's geomagnetic energy somewhere, or there's something big brewing. And I feel it, like it's not, it's tangible. And I'm
Hmm.
like this today. I'm really on I'm really on tenterhooks. Just gonna let the dog in very quickly. The
Okay. Meanwhile,
stop.
while you're doing
It's
that,
obviously started raining, has it? Yeah, there you go. Right, that's it. You're in now. Let me put that back. Yeah, it's obviously started to chuck it down a little bit
ah,
there.
right now, I'm just getting the first of our
Oh,
images up together here.
it's a
Just
bit of a, yeah, I was really glad when you offered this, because it was like there's a lot going on for me over the next little while, and it's like it's quite kind of quite messy to interpret on your
well,
own.
that yeah,
That's the
uh,
joy of having a
uh,
stellium, isn't it? When it hits
yeah,
it.
yeah. Now, obviously, I'm going to do this the Rowan way, right?
Yep,
So,
I'm up for that.
so you're getting a Rowan's view rather than a standard view. But then
That
that's the beauty of this is that you get a chance to get an autistic perspective, which might be different to the neurotypical astrologer.
Well,
Um,
very interesting, because I've just had my I've just sent off the first bit of my diagnosis for ADHD.
ah,
I've done all the tests to see if I'm neurotypical. So I'm
right,
up for that. Mm.
cool. That's interesting. Right now, by the way, I would say that whereas I equate autism with Neptunian dynamics, I would equate ADHD with Uranian dynamics.
Okay.
You
Yeah, I
know,
mean, I don't know whether I am ADHD, and the female ADHD
well,
is not like
well, you got a bit of it with Aquarius ascendant.
Aquarius rising
Yeah.
and all the
So, you know, if instead of ADHD, if we instead call it attention hopping on a constant continuous basis, right? But then that's a description of Aquarius rising. That's also a description of ADHD. If you just kind of look at um what these labels are describing. It's like I say to people, if you write out a description of Asperger's syndrome and then write out a description of Pisces in the third, Mercury in Pisces in the third, then you compare the descriptions, they're the same. It's just the language, the name we call it is different, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's got Aquarius in their chart, and everyone's got Uranus in the chart, and everyone's got Neptune in their chart and Pisces. We've all got a bit of it. Everyone's got an 11th and 12th house, right? But it's just a question of whether or not something is salient, whether it's prominent or not. So it's foreground background, really. And
Mm,
to what degree or to what extent foreground background. And some it's like I did a lecture on what it's like to be autistic for a load of sociology students at UE. And the tutor was saying that I was talking about how when I'm writing, sometimes instead of writing THE, I write HTE. So I get two of the letters in one way around. And she said, I do that, but only after I've been marking papers for 16 hours. So the stuff of autism isn't unusual to the human condition. It's just that for most people, they only think in that way if they're exhausted or fatigued or scared or frightened. Right?
mm,
Whereas I think like that when I'm wide awake and fine, which is why I get this diagnosis. Right. So likewise, ADHD isn't out of the bounds of human possibility. It's part of the human condition.
mm,
And some people will think in that mode when they're wide awake and fine, and other people have to be in a certain context or situation in order for that kind of thinking to become more salient in their behavior and what they're experiencing.
mm. I think
And
it explains an awful lot of, and it explains an awful lot of, they're saying that an awful lot of women my age have just been, because they're, it, and again, I'm seeing this through the lens of Chinese medicine now, because obviously that's what I've been studying for the last couple of years.
uh,
And, it's when you look at it through the difference between yin and yang, boys express very outwardly and they're very yang and they're very hyper, and whereas it goes undiagnosed in women
mm,
typically because it's much more of an internal process. So no, it's very interesting, but anyway,
mm.
that's not what we're.
it it
But
well
I will see that they've done. I mean, they've done all the autism tests as well. I've filled everything, sent it back, and we'll see what they come up with.
mm,
And had my first chat with a psychologist, and she's pretty convinced I've got it. But it's just like, what does that look like though? How does that express itself? And I won't be taking any medicine anyway, so
no.
it
It doesn't need curing, it just needs using well.
just needs understanding. And yeah,
Mm,
just once you're aware of things, then you can work with it a little
mm,
bit more intelligently, can't you?
yeah. Within every style of thinking, there is a gift.
Mm,
Find the gift, then use it well, and you'll make the most out of it.
yeah.
You know. Now, wow. Um, yes. uh, this is a chart inside a chart, as you know. We're just looking
Yeah.
at the houses that the planets are currently moving through, just to see what's being stimulated and what isn't. First thing that struck me, apart from that morass of things going through the first and second, is that Pluto's in the 12th.
Oh yes.
Right now, Pluto's been chugging its way through your 12th for about a year and a half, I'd guess.
Mm,
That's just a rough guess. As you know, it moves around 2 degrees a year, and it's got another 18 degrees to go, so that's another 9 years. And then Pluto will cross your ascendant. Um, when Pluto crosses your ascendant, there's a possibility that you'll have some quite impactful, dramatic life changes going on.
mm,
Uh, yeah, I when Pluto crossed my ascendant, I was swung onto a different path completely from the one I thought I was on. Um, but all that Pluto really does is sort the wheat from the chaff and jettison the chaff. And whereas, out of sentiment, the moon might want to keep hold of the boxes and things, Pluto says, fucking get rid of it, and if you don't let go, I'll wrench your arm off, right?
Our,
So,
our, our daughter, she was pony, 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 nature, boyfriend, sweet little girl, and Pluto went over her ascendant. She chopped her hair off, ditched her boyfriend, went to uni in the UK and became a musician. And just ditched all her old friends, ditched her old life in France, and like literally just said, out with the old, in with the new. And it was so blatant that transformation, that
Mm.
this doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah, I was on the threshold of starting a new life in Cornwall with a woman I'd had an on-off love affair with for about 4 years, and had a car crash uh, on Bodmin Moor at night in a blizzard, the very day that Pluto connected with my ascendant, and we parted company. And so I stayed in Wiltshire, and all the classes, etc., came out of that, you know. And we're in touch again now, but it's taken quite a convoluted sort of little route.
I've kind of had enough of Pluto's presence already in the 12th. I had the last.
Well, that's the thing. Now, Pluto going through the 12th uh, suggests a few things. One is that you have a hypersensitivity to all the rumblings in the collective unconscious. Right? Now, this means that by the rumblings, I mean kind of like not just the earthquakes, but all the stuff that's been pushed down beneath the surface.
Mm.
Right? So, for example, if you met someone, never, if you went to a conference, you never been, brand new people, never met anybody there before. You walk in the room, and one of the first people you meet is someone who's been working on their stuff, and they've been working through their things, and they've been cleansing their thing, and they've kind of extracted 80% of their shadow, they're 80% light. You just click, get on really well. You'd love them, right? Someone else could present themselves as being a sorted person, but you could just instantly feel the magnitude of repressed stuff they've got that they haven't worked through yet. Right? The kind of what we might think, in my opinion, what we might think of as a dodgy vibe from someone is essentially their unworked through stuff, their repressed stuff. If you think of the brain like the conduit through which spiritual light comes in and expresses itself out in the world, right? Like a crystal in a way, you get fissures and cracks in crystals. And it's those fissures and cracks that then produce or induce the types of human behavior that we dislike. Things like, from a dishonesty at a mild end to savage sadism at the other end. When a person works through their stuff, the fissures and cracks heal. And with Pluto going through the 12th house, you can detect it. And it will speak to you in your tummy. You will have tummy vibes. It's basically friend or foe, you know. Your bullshit detector is highly tuned or attuned at the moment as well, which means that you can pick up on the incongruence in people really well. If you think of a definition of congruence when words and actions match. So you can instinctively tell who's being straightforward, who isn't, who's bending the truth a bit, and all that stuff really, really easily, much more easily than you normally can, which is cool if you're kind of using it well. If you're doing client sessions, it's really useful because when you say to someone, so have you taken any heroin in the last 7 days? And they go, no, I haven't touched a drop. You know that they have or not, right? You can just tell. It's also very useful in a broader sociological sense as well. So, when politicians kind of spout forth on TV or radio, you can tell if they're being straightforward or not from a mile away. Now, the 12th house isn't just the collective unconscious. It's also, if you remember, the storehouse of the past. So with Pluto passing through your 12th house, if you do anything like past life regression work or fishing around in your unconscious to see what's in there type work, it could be very fruitful. So you could do deep sea diving and kind of mine your own unconscious while Pluto's going through the 12th house. Find regressional therapists, find psychotherapists that can kind of open up and, you know, not just kind of open up your unconscious, but also know how to competently close it again, not just open the door, but also lock it after, you know. Uh, it's an important part of doing anything like that is that the person is able to deal with the world after a session rather than just being left hanging. But yeah, that kind of exploration of a deep level could be very fruitful for yourself.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of mindfulness work, which I
Mm.
find very helpful.
Yeah, that'll do. You'll also find as well that your ability to kind of fish around in within other people is very fruitful as well at the moment.
It
Maybe
is, but I'm not seeing very many. It's like I've disappeared into a black hole for the last
okay.
little
Well,
while.
yes. Well, the potential is there for you to do that.
Mm.
But
I love it when I'm working with people. I'm very astute, and
mm,
you'll pick up on an emotion or a thought or whatever, and
yeah,
I instinctively know what to say, and the sessions are really really
mm,
good. But I'm not doing very many.
okay. Well,
Mm.
you got another decade of this, right?
There have been a lot of death over the last 18 months, 2 years in my world.
Yeah. Well, there will be.
Mm.
You know, there's 8 billion humans, and they're all going to go home. So
There's a period for it, yeah.
yeah, you'll know some of them. And I always think, like, if you imagine as you move through time, you're going along a tabletop conveyor belt, and there comes a day when you fall off the shelf at the end. And before you get to the shelf at the end, all of the furniture of life disappears first. So your pop stars, your film stars you grew up with, the inventions that were new to you when you were young, all of those things fade away. So by the time you get close to the end of the shelf, the world's almost unrecognizable. You don't know any of the pop stars now. You don't know any of the music people now. You don't know any of the film stars now. All the inventions are different. All the technologies are different. The language can change. All sorts of things change. So we kind of find ourselves sort of older with less friends in this unfamiliar space just before we
Mm.
kind of fall off the shelf. That's assuming we live to a long age. Um, Now, the 12th house isn't just stuff of the past, it's also the echoes, if you like, of the future. And so Pluto going through the 12th suggests a long period in which you have an instinct for the rumblings of things that are looming, you know. So you could tell, if you like, that there's thunder on the wind or there's a storm brewing out in the ocean. If you were on a ship at sea in the 18th century, you'd be really useful, you know. But as a kind of like from the viewpoint of being a seer, this is very cool. Hmm.
I've just been contacted actually yesterday by Mystic Mag.
Mystic what?
What on earth is Mystic Mag? They want to do an interview with me, and it's like,
Mystic
what is
man.
Mystic Mag? And it's a
Uh,
blog for
yeah,
intuitives and seers. I said, I don't know if I'm necessarily your right person, but I just find it's quite amusing that it should have, out of the blue like that.
sounds like they used to watch the lottery program in the 90s. Do you remember Mystic Meg?
Mystic Meg, yeah, no, they're Mystic Mag.
Mystic Mag, yeah. Um, yeah. Now, some people could be frightened when Pluto goes to the 12th because they get stuff from their unconscious coming up and it can seem unpleasant, but you're very self-aware. So you know the difference between whether or not the world is actually turned into a challenging space or whether or not you've got stuff from your unconscious coming up that makes it
Mm.
feel that way. And hopefully you can tell the difference between the two. What's internal stuff that means this needs attention, or what's external stuff, which means the world really has gone mad. And sometimes it might seem that there's a collusion between the two.
Yeah, I
You
think
know?
that happens too.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Saturn's been moving through your first house for some time. Um, how long would that be? Almost 2 years, just about.
Mm.
Yeah. Um, this suggests, of course, that you're in a good place to build. And so over the past couple of years, I'd be surprised if you haven't been building something new in some kind of fashion,
Mm.
or at least if you haven't been building something new, you might have felt that you could or should. And Saturn's at 15 Pisces at the moment. Your natal Saturn's at 21. And so this means you're on your way to your second Saturn return,
Oh,
which
fun.
might even take place this year.
I
We'll
think
have a look.
it's the beginning of next year sometime, I think.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, the time map will tell us a bit more in a minute. Um, but in Rowan, in the Rowan world, that means that your Uranus phase comes to an end. You begin the final chapter of your life, your Neptune life phase. And you'll find that the focus of your life will be different as well from then. Your Neptune, your night in Neptune is in the eighth in Scorpio. Uh,
Right.
yeah, so that suggests that once you're on the other side of your second Saturn return, your capacity for research will fall off the shelf even more deeply.
In what way? It will get.
Well, no, whenever you're researching anything at the moment, you're very good at researching things. Your inner detective is excellent.
Yeah, well, I haven't been doing. I've to be honest, the last couple of years, it's just been study, study,
Yeah,
study, study, study.
that's right. That's what research is. Yeah,
Mm.
it's looking into things, and you'll find that um, for the rest of your life, your capacity or ability to fish things out and get beneath the surface will be even richer,
Oh,
even
good.
deeper, even more profound, which is very cool, especially if you're chasing after a piece of information or if you're looking into something. There'd be no stone unturned,
Mm.
sort of thing, which I like. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Yeah. At the moment, Neptune's also been going through your first house. Uh, how long's that been doing that? Neptune's been chugging its way through your first house for about 10 years, maybe even a bit longer. Right. Okay. So over the last decade or so, Neptune in the first suggests that you've been sort of flowing with the tide of things, really. Not necessarily having a grand plan, but sort of reacting off this and reacting off that and flowing where it kind of feels right. But without a sense of written down 5 year plan, you know, 10 years from now, I shall be, no, you haven't been doing that. You've been finding out things, reacting, responding, finding out things, reacting, responding. That's what the Neptune through the first suggests. But Saturn in the first wants a plan.
Oh, Saturn really does.
Yeah.
I really do. I really feel that need to,
Yeah. No, you're
and
trying to,
that whole spiritual quest kind of thing that's been such a big part of my life. I am so done with like people that are just ungrounded and woo woo. I don't want to let go of the spiritual thing, but I'm trying to have something that's much more grounded and practical, and I want to be able to take what I do into hospitals
hmm,
and I want to be. I can't be doing with all this new age fluff. It drives me nuts. The longer I practice, the crosser it makes me.
I understand completely. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I mean, that's one of the things I love about the neuroscience side of stuff that I look at. I mean, polyvagal theory is just so cool. It's brilliant. And Jack Pansep, who sadly died a couple of years ago, the neuroscience guy that I bang on about all the time, who looked at uh, the emotions, the neuroscience of emotions, and how there's um, the same quality in all of the upper primates that exist in us. They're the same emotional kind of dynamics and things. And he suggested or proposed that there were seven primary drives
It's
in our
interesting, isn't it?
brains, and of
Yeah.
course they match the classical planets perfectly.
Mm.
There's a fear one, an adventure one, a caring one. It's just
And there's a movement to them. I'm sure it's
mm,
acoustic. I'm
yeah.
sure that it's like a resonance thing, and when Yeah, it when you start vibrating in that way, if it hits you, that John Stuart Reid did a lovely experiment with bubbles in a glass and sticking different frequencies through the glass, and all the bubbles of a certain size would respond to a certain frequency, and they'd all go racing around the glass, chasing one another and interacting with one another, and all the other ones that weren't of that similar size or dimension, they just kind of stay pretty inert. And then you change the frequency and they'd all calm down, and then another load of bubbles of a different dimension would leap into action. And it really takes me to, well, to chi dynamics and to astrology, and thinking, I wonder if that is, it's just that you've got these massive things in the sky that are rotating, that create, they create a vibration. They're movement, they
Mm,
move energy, they move life force, and
they
we
do
respond
indeed.
to it. And it would explain why not everybody, when Mars is doing its thing or Venus is doing her thing, not everybody responds to it, because we're not all made the same. But some people will resonate with that more than others, and it kind of gives us that unconscious stimulus to.
Hmm. And for me, it's the aspects that show whether or not something is going to kind of connect with you or not.
Mm,
You know. Uh, Now, but just continuing our general thing. So you need to serve both masters somehow. You need to find a way of being able to let yourself free float and be open to different ideas and express yourself creatively, and exercise compassion in whatever way you can or will, whilst at the same time um, doing practical things to create steps to build uh, the kind of life that is going to be your best channel, if you like. So kind of think of it a bit like here you are, an incarnated soul. What are you going to do with your time? And when you're just imagine that 5 minutes after your death, before you go in the great chamber, there's a kind of little waiting room. And you're in the little waiting room, and someone says to you, "Ah, hello." And you go, "Hello," and they go, "Ah." Uh, so what was your most kind of greatest achievement? What are you most pleased at having done with your time? And whatever the answer to that question is, do that. Plan it, build it, plug it into your world, or plug your world into it. Make it so that you actively participate in in the conversation that you have after you've died being one of utter joy and delight.
yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because I felt like I've done that for years and years.
Mm,
And I would expect to be seeing more of that, that making practical use of something that is
mm.
inspired.
Well, you see,
And
the thing
yet
is,
I
yeah.
and it's just not happening.
Well, as you go forwards through
Well,
time,
maybe it is,
well,
but it's slow, isn't it? Because it's Saturn. So I guess I am
yeah,
building on that,
you are indeed.
and it's not necessarily blatantly obvious. I really am. Years ago, I had this vision. I can only It's like I had a shush, thank you, a transcendental experience. Um, and I knew I would have to study astrology and acupuncture and cymatics. And I've done the two. I'm still studying astrology and I'm still studying cymatics, but I'm now doing the acupuncture. So maybe I am doing that.
Mm.
It's just Neptune's not always very clear, is it?
Yes,
So,
it is. Remember that Neptune is the planet of clarity.
oh, right. Okay. I always
When
think of Neptune as a fog.
Do you remember that when Neptune used to arise out of the ocean,
Mm.
there are three classic ways that he would present himself. Sometimes he would be surrounded by fog. At other times, he'd be accompanied by wild tempests and furious storms. And at other times, he'd be accompanied by calm, clear waters. Neptune, Pisces are the symbols of clarity and or confusion and or wild passions. Depends how you use it.
Mm.
You know, one example of uh, like a clear sun in Pisces is Professor Brian Cox.
Mm.
Right? No matter what you think of his attitude towards astrology, you can't teach at that level if you've got a befuddled brain, right? So, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I am building it. It's just not. I'm not seeing that
wow.
anything concrete yet.
And
Yeah, but it
then,
takes time.
well, yeah, in that case, then what you need, I would suggest, is you need um, uh, easy to spot markers that let you know you're making progress. You
Mm.
need progress points. Yeah. So if you were walking a marathon in a city, you'd see shop doorways passing, you'd see lampposts passing, you get a sense of furniture going past you. But if you were doing the same thing in a desert, there wouldn't be any indication about how far you've gone. So maybe it's not that you're not achieving anything. Maybe it's just that you're not recognizing the steps that you do and celebrating them.
Yeah.
You know, every
Do you
time.
know? Do you know what I mean, I have got markers.
Hmm,
Because I've had sat loads of exams in French as well, and I've managed to pass them all so far.
well, that's
But I haven't. Have I celebrated them, or have I just gone, bloody hell, that was hard work?
ah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so that's very helpful.
yeah. There's a thing. What is it? Oh, yeah, it's fun. Yeah, fun. Fun is very important, you know, because you you can only share what you have. You
Mm,
know that, right? You can only give someone 50p if you've got 50p. Makes sense.
mm.
So whatever you have inside you is what you share. So if you have I've worked hard, I'm knackered inside you, that's what you're sharing around with the
Yeah, I
people around
know.
you.
There's a real I have a real touch of the eels about me at the moment, and
Ah,
I'm trying not to, but it's I can it's
well,
oh,
it's
I'm aware of it.
if your desire is to be a ball of light, then that means it's your spiritual duty to enjoy yourself.
I'm going to put that on my.
Even though you got Saturn in the first house, it's actually your spiritual and karmic duty to fill yourself with light and joy, which means doing anything that gives you a buzz. Remember that recreation means to recreate. And so whenever you do anything for leisure that doesn't have a tangible reward, it lights up your heart. You know, any engineer worth their salt will tell you that you can only get a bright light from a torch with a fully charged battery. So by putting the pen down, going away from the desk, picking up a guitar, going to watch a band, go and see a show, do whatever it is, then when you come back to the desk, you're more replenished, and you get better work that way.
Thank you.
So it's
Just
important
this session was worth it just to hear that.
right.
That's
Hence the figure
perfect.
of speech, all work and no play.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, you do. Yes. And so Neptune going through the first, as well as Saturn. Neptune will be there long after the Saturn's gone past. So yeah, it's just while Saturn's going through. This building and planning stage is the prelude to when Saturn goes into your second, right? So
Mm.
if you construct healthy, good plans while Saturn's going through your first house, then you'll find that where Saturn's passage through your second house will be easier because it'll have things to do. Excuse me, hold on. Saturn, you will have things to do. You would have already laid out the plans, and
Mm.
yeah, you'll be able to make the most of things. Uranus, meanwhile, is about to make a change. Uranus has been going through your second house for ages. It's about to go into your third. Now, what's interesting, of course, is that there we were. We started off this conversation talking about ADHD, and I talked about how I correlate ADHD with things of a Uranian basis. And Uranus is literally just stepping into your third house of cognition now. Isn't that a funny coincidence?
I don't. There's no coincidences.
Well, just seems like a funny
Yeah,
coincidence to
I
me.
learned that one a long time ago. It's like, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, are you ADHD or not? If you explore that issue while Uranus is going through your third house, it'll give you a resounding yeah. Um, Now, so this suggests, of course, over the next, it's quite a narrow house, isn't it? Well, no, it's about the whole sign, isn't it? Just about middle of 22nd of Taurus until. So I just think Uranus will take about 4 years to go through your third, which does suggest that your attunement to the firmament will be even more profound. Um, the way that your thinking is quite often stimulated by electromagnetic phenomena is going to be more so.
And I'm studying acupuncture, Chinese medicine,
But that's brilliant for that. Yeah.
which is literally
Mm,
it's been a bit of a challenge because obviously they work with 5 elements and it's been really hard. I've had to kind of park the astrology because it
mm.
um but I can't help myself. We did something in class on Sunday and they had
Oh,
they were
I've
giving
got
all
a,
this
I've got
amazing.
some, I've got someone knocking at the door. Can you hold
Oh,
on a second?
okay. Yeah, no problem. I'll
Oh,
stick about the log on the file.
thank you for that.
That's all right.
Um, yes. So, yeah, now Uranus going through your third suggests not only would you be more attuned to electromagnetic phenomena, um, you'd also find that your attention could be difficult to kind of hold, right?
Yeah,
So
okay.
now this might mean that you kind of, if you like to use a metaphor, have more than one tab open on your screen at the same time, and you bounce from one to the other to the other to the other. So rather than kind of opening up a Word document and writing the paper, what you might find yourself doing is having 3 or 4 Word documents open and you're bouncing from one paper to another, adding a sentence with each one as you go. There
I
isn't
do
a
that anyway.
right. Okay, well, there isn't a right or wrong, just so long as you find a method that enables you to progress in the way that you want.
Mm.
Right. And
Again, it's very interesting because they say when women reach a certain age, biologically they have less yin, and so it has an impact on you have more visible yang, and you it's like a real activator for ADHD in women. It's teenage years and like postmenopause. So you kind of hit a point in life where it aggravates those symptoms that are already present.
right.
And that's kind of where I'm at. And it's like
Okay. Use technology. For example, uh, there's a transcription thing called Dragon Naturally Speaking.
dragon, naturally speaking.
Yeah. And the problem with it is that you have to have a microphone connected up to your computer and it transcribes what you're saying in real time. But someone pointed me onto a different transcription thing, which is called Otter. And with Otter, you can also run pre-recorded MP3 files for it. So I took the soundtrack of a 2.5 hour astrology class, ran it through this software, and 2.5 hours later there was a 47-page document.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have uh, a plan that I haven't done yet, but of taking myself off to sacred places and and speaking into a dictaphone the chapters of a book. So then each chapter of the book is written in in a different temple.
How
You know,
lovely.
I just really like the idea of doing that. Kind of climbing up Silbury Hill and lying down and just kind of doing a whole chapter of a book one sunny afternoon, and then running it through the software and then just doing the edits later. Uh, I think it's a cool idea.
Mm,
Yeah. Yeah. This book has been written in several places in the sacred landscape. Just the vibe. It's going
yeah,
to be cool.
fantastic.
Yeah. So if Uranus represents computing technologies and it's going into your third house of cognition and writing, then explore different ways of being able to use technologies that work with your thinking rather than against it. Because your thinking style is fine. It's the world that's the problem. Right? It's like there's nothing wrong with my brain. It's the people who put speakers above the tables in restaurants that are the problem because they think you need to eat inside a nightclub and that conversation is less important than the backbeat.
So difficult. I had one of our teachers got up. We had exam, not this exam, we had an exam Saturday, but the one before. And 15 minutes from the end, when I was already under a bit of pressure to finish in another language, and she decided to stand up and start walking around the class. And if it's not silent, I can't write. And I just like internally, I just wanted to scream, like, will you shut up? But it's just the last 15
Uh,
minutes was just like a form of torture. It's like, no noise, please, silence. Just
there was
silence.
about probably about 6 or 7 years ago, the BBC Two did a test run, pilot run of an afternoon quiz about nature. So there was Chris Packham on one team and someone
Mm.
else on another. And there was music playing in the background all the time, all the time. So I wrote to the producers and complained. In the second series, they removed the music. So I thought, okay, people power, you can make a difference. I'd avoid watching the latest episode of The Sky at Night.
Oh,
In the
right.
latest episode of The Sky at Night, they're doing this whole thing, which is quite fascinating on the findings from that meteor. They sent a probe and they got a bit of meteor or asteroid. And so they're exploring now what they've got from it, you know. And but while there are these very serious interviews about what they found, there's this kind of background music all the way through the whole thing. And it's not like a bit of music leads up to the conversation, then you can hear what the people say, and then you have this, you know, it's not, it's all the way through the whole thing. It's maddening.
Oh, how
Yeah.
maddening.
It is maddening indeed. So anyway, yes. So there's nothing wrong with your thinking. It's just that finding ways to harness it. That's the
Mm.
thing to do. Another thing as well, of course, is that with Uranus going through the third house, you could write or speak astrology very well indeed. Uh,
That would do
so
me.
yeah. So if you've got any intention or ambition to put pen to paper or to create some kind of astro document, this is a really good time to do it while Uranus is going through the third house of writing.
That's really good to know, actually.
Yeah. Another thing you might do, of course,
I started writing something and then I I got about a month into it and just got sidetracked and it's just kind of sat there waiting, doing.
hmm, uh,
Mhm.
another thing you could do is experiment with technology and mobility. So you might find yourself looking at electric cars or hybrid cars or electric bikes or some kind of thing like that.
We've got
Um,
we've got
uh,
an electric car.
sorry?
We bought an electric car and an electric bike.
Yeah, cool.
Hmm.
Um,
Could do
yeah.
with one with a bit more range, but you
Well,
live and learn, don't you?
yeah, I've got a hybrid car.
I wish we'd got hybrid.
Yeah, the infrastructure's not here yet.
Oh,
Well,
we have over here. We're pretty good over here, but when I go away, it's just a nightmare.
I had an accident in October, and it's the best thing because I got a similar car again, but it's 2 years later. It's got a digital dashboard. I love it. Absolutely love the technology of this. It's so cool. You know, yeah, I like it. Right, let's have a look at the time map. So see what's going on with you. Hold on, hold on. Do you want this from the 1st of January or from now?
We can do it from now.
Okay.
Whatever, unless there's anything sort of major that like leaps off the page at you. But I've kind of got a fairly clear handle of where I'm at and where I'm more interested in what happens as I'm going towards my Saturn return, so I get there
Yeah.
relatively unscathed.
Okay. Well, we'll do it from the 1st of April. Okay. Just going to share the screen with you. I haven't had time. I haven't looked at it. I've just created it. We'll explore it together. Right. Let me know when you can see that.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah. Cool. Right. What we got going on?
I have no idea about minor aspects, but that's oh good, you haven't put them in there.
Um, no, it's just tonomaics. I'm just going to give a quick scan first to see what's all right. Yeah. Is Saturn returning here? Yes, it is. Right. Okay. All right. Yes, this is the end of your Uranus life phase. You got some stuff.
What would happen in the Eurus life phase then?
Well, you got when you were born, Uranus is in Virgo in the seventh conjunct Pluto, etc. So that marks the tone of your life between roughly 42 and 59. And then from 59 onwards, you're in your Neptune life phase. And then Neptune is the context. So the condition of Neptune shows you the condition of the rest of your life. So think of it your life like a book. So you got chapters, and then
Yeah.
or like a play. So you have a chapter, and then within each chapter there are scenes, and then within those scenes there are pages. So the planets and houses are the scenes, and the time map is the pages.
Yeah.
So this is the micro detail, if you like. Yes.
So
Just
Neptune, the quality of Neptune when after my Saturn return will give me an indication as to how
yeah,
things will. Okay.
yeah. Scorpio eighth, its various aspects, and any house is touched by Pisces.
Scorpio 8th.
And of course, all of the aspects to your Neptune as well, and all the septiles in your chart, septile series.
Oh, I don't know anything about septiles.
So that's septiles, biseptiles, triseptiles, all of that.
Biseptiles,
That's yeah,
biseptiles. Okay.
yeah. If you want some time, I mean, if you want to do that sometime before you get to your Saturn return, we could do like a session on your Neptune life phase, and
That'd be really,
and
really
just
useful.
do a
Mm,
chapter thing of that's what.
brilliant.
But meanwhile, back at
Mhm.
the
Back at the
back
whole
back
face.
back at the discounted forecast. Um, yeah, not only have you got your second Saturn return, and by the way, I would say that at the time of your Saturn return, Saturn is going direct, it's not retrograding,
Right.
which means that whenever you get a kind of some kind of seasonal change, there's turbulence.
Yeah.
Yeah? Or, if there's where a river meets the sea in an estuary, you'll get a few ripples. So some people find that the actual stuff of a Saturn return is uncomfortable. And for some people, because of its retrograde nature, they can have that discomfort for about 9 months, 10 months. You've got it for about 2 weeks.
That will do me nicely.
So that's not too bad. But you got some other stuff before that when Saturn is doing a retrograde dance in a bit of an uncomfortable way. Just as this is almost like a closing chapter of your Uranus life phase. Just as your Uranus life phase comes to an end, Saturn's opposing your Uranus. And this begins to build up now. In fact, it's building now through April. So you'll be feeling it. And it will be in play until March next year. So Saturn opposing Uranus can represent a few things. One is that you could experience some sort of pressure from the world around you to be less Uranian. So there could be some kind of either an actual or just an imagined pressure for you to conform or to do business properly or to have a routine or to, have structure in your world. There could be some kind of dynamic going on between you and authority figures as well. Now, I don't know anything about civic life in France, right? And I don't know anything about your particular relationship with the civic bureaucracies of France, but you could find that there's all sorts of niggles between you and what would in English be a local council.
We are the Ordre de, it's like the medical council, the Ordre Conseil de Médecins, are trying to regulate and basically shut down all alternative therapies. But in particular, if you're not a doctor and I'm studying acupuncture, and they're saying that you will be prosecuted if you're doing acupuncture and you're not a qualified medical practitioner, but they want to shut down Reiki. So I've just joined various associations to take on.
Mm.
So that's kind of interesting, the timing of that.
Yeah, that's typical of it.
I mean, they're
Um,
saying it's like literally, it's like a modern day witch trial over here. They're just trying to like
right.
wipe.
Yeah.
We've had them. They've just taken one of our teachers to court. Um,
Right.
yeah, he got
Well,
fined. He got fined 150 euros, which he had to pay to the local doctor because the local doctor was losing money because they were all going to see the Chinese medicine
that's
practitioner.
awful. That's terrible. You had to give the money to the doctor because the doctor wasn't getting the
He's
clients.
losing his patients to alternative
That's
practitioners.
that's all. What a thing to do.
So there you go.
I think
But
that's outrageous. That's not.
But if it gets, obviously they can go and fight it head on, and I'm not French. And if I run into any issues with them, I could literally get booted out the country. So it's kind of a little bit more risky for me. But
Yeah.
I've still got
Mm. Now,
that militant Mars bit of me is going to say, fuck it, I'm going anyway. You're not going to tell me that I'm not.
yeah. Well, be mindful that not only is Saturn opposing your Uranus, it's also opposing your Pluto at the same time.
Yeah.
So you could find yourself bumping into forces that are bigger than you.
Mm.
One of those forces that are bigger than you could be a tyrannical, fascistic government. Another force that could be bigger than you is time. Another force that could be bigger than you is death as well.
Lovely.
So you might have to kind of look at all sorts of changes over the next year.
Pluto and Uranus are in my seventh.
Hmm.
So that could come via a partner as well, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could. Yeah.
Mm. Okay.
And Saturn could mean that now is the time for such changes. But it's in the air for a year. And as you know, in the polysemy of things, it's not just change doesn't just mean physical end. It can mean all sorts of changes
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Transformation.
You might even find that your attention swings into a deeper way, looking at psychology, for example,
Mm.
Saturn to Pluto, or that your attention goes the other way, away from academia, and you want to become a kind of a white witch high priestess, and you go in a more occult direction. That would be very Plutonic as well.
I will have around the end of that period. There's a psychology aspect. We have a psychology part of my course
Mm-hmm.
around about that time. So towards the end of that period,
Right.
which I'm itching to get to.
Okay. Now, another Saturnian dynamic that's a prelude to your Saturn return is at the moment, as we speak, Saturn is square your midheaven, and therefore that means it's square your IC as well. Right? So, another indication of you having kind of problems with land or with your home or with the civic area around you. Right? Then again, it could be family things if it's square in the fourth house. Yeah, there might be something about the house that you want to do, some renovations, or there could be some things you want to rebuild. that kind of thing.
We're
If
still rebuilding. It's just really, really slow, really.
all right, okay. Well, yeah, that would fit with this. Then again,
But
you
it's
could be,
spare my MC. Yeah.
yeah, in square in terms of the MC, this suggests a period in which you're looking at redesigning not just what you do, but how you go about it
Yeah, completely.
as well.
Yeah,
And that
completely.
rebuild,
Because it's not working.
yeah,
And I'm not earning the minimum wage. I can't carry on like that. That's not
mm,
fair on anybody else in the family. So,
right. Well, that rebuilding process goes on until the end of the year. Or to put it another way, the window in which you can rebuild only goes on till the end of the year.
mm,
So, however you've got things going by the end of December, the die is cast, as it were, for the following year. So, get those plans oiling and start to dream about the details. And I would recommend that if you can begin to kind of get a design of any plans and ideas in place before the end of June, that would be a good idea. My reason for saying that is that once you get to June, you could find that any thoughts of planning and structure and progress and things go out the window because Uranus is going to be conjunct your North Node for a year, right? Which could mean that you find yourself going off piste and that you make decisions that are radical and a bit wild. So you might scrap a whole load of things that you want to do in favor of this brand new thing, whatever it is. And as always, you know, make sure that you can return to where things were originally. So, yes, dye your hair blue. Yes, shave your head, but do not get your name tattooed on your forehead, right? Keep away from the tatty parlor. You know, leave the house, but do not burn it down. Because once the Uranus transit's finished, you might kind of find yourself thinking, oh, I wish I could go back to where I was. But if you trashed it, then you can't. So if you're going to do anything a bit wild and radical, talk it through with somebody first,
mm.
or maybe even two or three people. You know, I know that the motorbike and Kuala Lumpur are very appealing, and you just want to kind of throw a guitar on the back of a motorbike and off you go with an orangutan for companionship. Um, but what about the business and what about your family and what about all these other things?
I
So,
I'm actually toying with going off while because we have a little break in that in the summer, and I'm toying with using that while I have that opportunity to go and walk the Saint Jacques de Compostelle, walk down. You know, it's the Pilgrim's Walk.
all right, where's that?
You walk from the south of France across the Pyrenees to Spain,
Okay.
and it was
Well,
like so that would be kind of an okay use of that.
that's definitely an okay use of that, and it's not a wild rebellion thing. The stuff that is
There's
of
free,
concern,
very freeing though, very freedom.
yes, but the stuff that's of concern isn't what you're thinking about before this transit.
Mm,
That's not
just
of
what pops up
concern,
out of the
right?
blue.
Right. It's the stuff that comes into your head during the transit
Yeah.
that you haven't yet thought of yet, right? Those are the things of concern. Only they're only of concern for the health and well-being of the general you that will still be alive and well once the transit's finished. Right? It's your future self that is under care here, not your present or historical self.
Okay. How long does that last for? That roughly that transit?
About a year. So it will start building up through the middle of June and it will fade out by August 2025. However, during this period of time, you might find that your life path becomes even more Uranian than you've ever imagined.
That suits me. I don't mind
So
that.
I know. Now, if you worked in a bank and
Never.
you went on a rebellious path, you'd get the tie-dye thing and go and live in a commune in Cornwall or something, right? But if you lived in a Cornwall, commune in Cornwall, and you got a rebellious thing, you'd buy a suit and work for a bank. So Uranus conjunct the node could mean that you make radical decisions off the path that you're on. So you might suddenly think, do you know what? What I really need to do is get a 9 to 5 job and just have no responsibility.
Mm. Well, that's
And
possible too if I'm feeling a bit broke.
yeah, and so you
That
could
could happen.
you could think that, someone else makes all the decisions. You don't. You just turn up for work, do the job, go home, and you leave it behind you when you do.
Find it.
And just for a period of time, you might find that that might actually be a way of taking off pressure and give you the freedom, the mental freedom to write, because you're not under, once you go home, your time is yours. But no one's chasing you at 10 o'clock in the morning for an appointment next day, that kind of thing. And you could be bringing some income in, so that would make your Saturnian side feel more comfortable. So that's, a departure from your current path, which also has like a sensible Saturnian dynamic to it as well, as an example. Then again, you could decide actually you do want to scrap everything and just focus on astrology. So you could do that. Or scrap everything and say that you decided you want to be an online DJ. Um, you know, yes, or or maybe acupuncture captures you so much that everything else goes out the window. There's a variety of things that could be represented.
I love combining all those. I mean, that's the aim, is like when people come here, they come for their Reiki session, but I use the medical and psychological astrology,
Mm,
as a way of, it explains what I feel in my hands, what I feel where and the meridians, and it gives me the language that describes. So I really want, the aim is to, I know that's not necessarily fit with the aim, but the aim is really to combine all those things from a,
mm,
from a
yeah.
therapeutic kind of.
So on the one hand, there's this kind of like an amplification of Uranian dynamic in your life. But on the other hand, that could also mean that you dissociate from the path you've been on up till now and do something radically different. And a radical departure from your current path is to conform. But another radical departure from what you're doing now is to become more of a rebel than you've ever been. So the idea of you being at the front of the demonstrations, waving a flag on the barricades is pretty on the cards, right? Especially as Uranus is going to be sextile your Mercury as well. So
Right.
just think about that. You've got Uranus going into your third at the same time as having Uranus making a sextile to your Mercury. Um, so yeah, you're pretty much ADHD central,
Hmm.
but also astro central and acupuncture central and
And Reiki Central. Yeah.
enlightenment central as well. And you could find that your intuitions and your sort of, I guess, background telepathy are really highly tuned as well. I think it's brilliant. I think it's very cool, but then I'm not a conformist, so I think it's great. You know? What else can we find in here?
So,
Jupiter.
but that could come from, if that's a lot of that. Oh no, because Uranus isn't there, is it? It's the Pluto star, the Pluto and Uranus
Hmm,
in my natal chart, a seventh house, but that's
yeah.
in my third, isn't it?
Yep. That's
Hmm.
right. Yes, passing through your third.
Hmm.
Uh, Jupiter um, catches up with your fourth house, uh, goes back into your third for a bit, and then goes forwards back into your fourth again. When Jupiter reaches your fourth house in July, you could spend between July and the end of the year wishing you had more space. And that might mean that you want to get rid of some stuff to make some space. It might mean that you think you should build more rooms to to house the stuff. Or you might get itchy feet and think that you want to move and go and do somewhere else. That's a possibility.
I already do.
All right. Okay. So
But
yeah.
Mr.
Now,
Morton doesn't, so
yeah.
it's
Now,
like,
what while Jupiter's going through your fourth,
mm,
if you did do any house hunting, you could have a lucky find. So it's worth just keeping an eye open. Jupiter retrogrades back into your third house on the 1st of January, and then it comes forwards again and spends time in your fourth house proper from the beginning of March 2025. Okay. Talking to Jupiter, um,
yeah,
Jupiter's going to,
that would explain an awful lot of the building stuff. You know, we can't sell until it's renovated,
yeah,
and we're renovating when Carl has a weekend. So because he works really long hours at the moment,
right.
working far too many long hours, and so we can't make any kind of a move until the house is. But it's a very slow program.
Mhm.
This weekend he moved a light switch. So now I've got to wait till next weekend, and then we might get a bit of skirting board on. You know, it's slow.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah,
to move. I'd love to move. I'm out of my head with boredom here.
right.
Mm.
Jupiter's sextile your Mars from mid-July all the way through until March. You'll have a lot of get up and go, a lot more vitality. That get up and go needs somewhere to go to. It needs something to do. So, if there's a type of exercise that you like to do, whether it's walking the Pyrenees or getting on a bike or whatever it is, just make a note to do a lot of it from July until March. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's kind of pretty kind of crucial as well for my
yeah,
like for various cancers that I've had in the past as well, and issues like liver meridian issues that have led to my breast cancer, and knowing that when you get I get irritated or I get frustrated, it kind of aggravates because it's too stimulating. So that's
mm,
although it's a
yeah.
sex style,
Think,
so it could
think,
be worse, but
yeah,
it's quite exciting, isn't it?
think of exercise as affect release.
Mm.
So you need to discharge the affect from your system so it goes out instead of firing in. Now, a couple of things aren't quite that much fun. Jupiter's going to be square your natal Pluto and square your Uranus from mid-July all the way through into the spring of 2025. This could mean that you experience a sort of like an overwhelm when it comes to things Uranian or things Plutonic. It might seem at times that there's too much, you know, uh, too many mysteries, too many powerful experiences of abreactions of repressed stuff coming up, too many, you know, problems with change. Um, yeah,
Hmm.
they
I had a little foretaste of that, and I can't think how it expressed itself. But it was around the time that my husband had his cancer, so
right.
I can't think how what the configuration was now. But and
Um,
I have I mean Jupiter my Jupiter is so badly aspected in my birth chart anyway, square everything.
right.
I don't I never feel very optimistic about Jupiter. Jupiter scares me shitless. Jupiter, I always think of excess growth, and then you know, from medical astrology, you think, oh, cancer. It's,
Well, that's the thing.
or
You know,
hypertension.
you're the only other person that said that to me. In the late 90s, there was this trend of people signing off saying love and abundance. And I constantly say to myself, no, I reject that. And people used to say to me, you need to meditate on abundance. I'm like, no, I don't, because it's an abundance of what? There's no caveat there. There's no qualification.
Honestly, I've seen Jupiter in so when mum was dying, my breast cancer, if you look at the times of my breast cancer, Jupiter was in Cancer. My husband had his colon cancer while Jupiter was in Scorpio. Not Jupiter was in, it was in his house of health, but anyway, Jupiter was really impacting the colonic part of his
Hmm.
chart. My mum had her, you could track the evolution of her cancer with Jupiter's movement through the chart and the moon. And
Yeah, but
but it's like, oh no, well, you have all these traditional astrologers who I really respect, but they're all like, Jupiter's so wonderful and it's a benefic.
mm,
And the medical astrologer part of me is going, yeah, but
well,
it's
yeah.
not
See,
always.
uh, if
It's
you in a post Saturn, a new look at an old devil world, there are things about Saturn that are wonderful, and there are
yeah.
things about Jupiter which aren't.
Mm,
Right? And I mean, I remember I might have mentioned this to you that when I got my hands on my first bit of astro computing, the second thing I looked at was the Star of Bethlehem, but the first thing I looked at was my mum's transits for the day she died.
mm,
And I was expecting to see terrible Plutos and things. And I was surprised that the highest quantity of transits on that day were Jupiter squares.
mm. I Mum had a Jupiter Neptune aspect at the time that she went, and the moon crossed over at that point. It was like the moon was like the trigger, and the
Mm,
nurses came to me and they said, "Oh, you need to go off and get yourself some food because we're going to be here for ages." And I just thought to myself, I went and got it, but I knew I wouldn't need it, and it literally, and it was it. I found that really soothing. Actually, it was like this great release, that that
mm,
expansion into something bigger, and
mm,
I found that very the whole process following it, watching her death, although it wasn't very pleasant, just understanding that it was part of something bigger and it was a cycle, and it was, I just found that very, I found it beautiful.
mm.
I found it beautiful. I found it really, really comforting to know that, and it wasn't this horrible thing. It was a very beautiful releasing, and it was like, yeah, that was the out breath. It's
Yeah.
like, there you go.
Well, sometimes a problem can be present because a problem is present,
Mm,
but a problem can also be present because the solution is absent,
yeah.
right? So one can have a challenging time because Saturn's sitting on top of your shoulders, but you can also have a challenging time because Jupiter's fucked off, right? Now, having Jupiter square your Pluto and square your Uranus is as if the protection of Jupiter has dropped. Think of it like having an immune problem, right?
Hmm.
And you've got that to both your Pluto and your Uranus simultaneously, right? So this could suggest a few things. It could suggest that you personally are having issues or problems with plutonic stuff and or Uranian stuff. With plutonic stuff, that could be things you repressed that you haven't worked through yet. It could be dealing with other people's repressed stuff and you're not quite sure how to do that because it's of a vast magnitude.
Hmm.
It could be that you're studying things and you discover things about the human psyche that hasn't even crossed your mind yet. Unlikely, but possible. We have to mention it because it's possible.
All the
Um,
time at the moment.
it
I'm seeing life through a completely new lens, and it's like
right.
I'm having aha moments like,
All right. Okay.
oh,
It
how
could.
that works like that. Oh, wow. I
Mm,
didn't know that
it
about my.
it could be that you encounter um with things on a large organized scale that cause you to be shocked. There might be a level of organized crime. There might be a corruption in government. There might be something of a kind of the dark web, dark fascist typey thing.
which
That
is in which is not beyond the realms of possibility
and absolutely isn't.
at the moment.
No, that's why I'm mentioning it. Um, the
Mm.
square to Uranus, it could mean that uh, there could be technology problems on a surface manifestation. You could find you have all sorts of technical glitches and hitches. That's a possibility. Um, your sense of rebellion or being radical could somehow
Get me into trouble.
get set light to a load of hubris, and it comes back to bite.
Hmm.
That's a possibility. So you could cut off your nose to spite your own face to an extent.
I have actually contemplated moving. I don't want to move back to the UK, but I have actually contemplated a move back to the UK so I can practice without the hassles of France.
Right. Okay.
It's not.
Yep.
I
Well,
don't. I don't think it will happen, but
no. But you'd be welcome. Well, yes. Um, yeah. So I would strongly recommend,
mm,
really, that if you're going to go um doing anything adventurous, uh, if you can, fit it in before the end of July.
right. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Ju- 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 Just,
Yeah, I'm up for that.
yeah, just so that you minimize the the potential for you to put yourself in injury or harm's way. So yes, go tight walking over the ravine at the beginning of July, but I wouldn't recommend tight walking over a ravine in September, October, November,
Gosh, that would
December, or
have to be
January.
soon then. That would have to be in May, really.
Uh, all
Hmm.
right.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
up for that.
Yeah. Keep yourself safe is a thing. Um, Now Jupiter is
I'm kind of a bit dubious about keeping my husband safe as well
well,
during
and
that
indeed,
period.
yeah, the context is the second house as well. So yeah. But you could find that you have changes in the way that you relate with relating as well. There might be internal emotional, psychological changes rather than necessarily just physical ones.
Mm.
Right. Now, talking of which, Jupiter is trine your Venus from the beginning of September all the way through into the spring of 2025. On the surface, this sounds like great news. Jupiter trine Venus, you will have like money, income, you will have income, which is wonderful.
Oh, when does that start?
It starts at the beginning of September
Ex-
and it goes all the way through into April the following year.
I am actually waiting for. I paid too much tax when my stepdad died. They so I am
Now,
anticipating getting a lump sum of money, but they're being bloody slow about it.
ah, now I'm going to say something to you in exactly the wording that I normally say it to other people. All right.
Hmm.
And it goes something like this. Over the last 33 years, I've met a wide variety of different people doing this, right? And one thing that I've come to learn is that I can't tell what your opinion is of you by merely looking at you. I've met people who are the size of two houses who are absolutely comfortable in their skin. And I've met people who look so thin that they look ill, but they feel as if they're far too white, right? So I don't know what your relationship with your physiology is, but I do know this, that with Jupiter trine your Venus, if you have a desire to inflate your physical size,
No more.
then head for the donut stall from
No,
September through
no,
to
no.
April,
Excess,
right?
excess.
If, on the other
Watch
hand,
my weight.
if on the other hand you do not wish to amplify your physical size, keep away from the donuts, right? So, in other words, be mindful of your relationship with fats and sugars from September all the way through to April the following year.
Okay, so here's the thing, because my Jupiter is square my Venus already, and I have a massive issue with that,
Hmm.
a digestive issue, um, that it fascinates me, the astrology of it all and the way it actually comes out in real life, because when I eat fats and sugars, and literally if I just have a cup of coffee, I literally expand. My stomach and I've been having treatment for it for the last year, so that's something
Hmm.
that's okay, that's worth keeping on my radar. It's problematic. It's a
Yeah,
like kind of a hormonal thing.
right. Well, yeah. Now, another thing is that you
Goes
might
back to a long
have,
way as well. It goes back to a lot of psychological stuff
yeah,
around feeling I'm there. I'm the old woman with all these skinny little
Mhm.
young acupuncturists, and we're all stripped off in our bras and knickers, and they're all like little young surfy chicks, and there's me with my middle lying on the massage table.
Mm.
But it that brings up a lot of uncomfortable stuff for me.
Mm. Now,
Mm.
Jupiter trine Venus could also mean a period in which you spend more than you otherwise would normally do.
Okay.
So that that obviously there's nothing wrong with you eating cake. There's nothing wrong with you spending money, just so long as you're doing it mindfully. So be
I,
conscious, be con
I don't, and this is the thing. I am not a cakey. I am. It's the opposite. I eat very, very little, but I expand anyway.
I was only letting you know that I'm not
Mm,
trying to boss you around, right?
mm, mm.
Uh, i.e., you do what you want with your fridge, you do what you want with your money, but while you've got this going on, just be mindful,
Mindful of it.
right? Yeah,
Mm.
be mindful. Jupiter's trine your ascendant. That's cool. From again from September into the spring of 2025, you'll have a feeling that you're starting a new chapter in life,
Oh, please.
and that's a very cool thing. And the year ends with a little sprinkle. Excuse me, a little sprinkle of fairly easy Saturn transits. Saturn's sextile your moon in February, March. That's cool. You'll be quite settled at home. There's your Saturn return in March 2025. Saturn's trine your Neptune. So you'll be able to bring your dreams to life. And remember that a good plan is really like a tree. It's only as healthy as its roots. So if you've got a project or an idea for something, that's brilliant. But the details in the planning, and that's where the success is. You know,
Mm.
in the practical structure of it. And it might seem boring,
It's
but
not
you
that
have a
really
structure in
boring.
your
I'm just
body.
not very. That's kind of where my glitch is as far as the whole ADHD. I can't. I find planning that executive function is like that. That's the flipping hiccup.
No one ever said being alive is easy.
Yeah, the
Um,
planning.
yeah, Saturn's conjunct your Chiron uh, in March 2025.
Mm.
Which your Chiron in your first. Oh, right, okay. So you could find that you have a bit of a not a dark night of the soul, but kind of like a big question about who am I? What am I? What do I want to be? What version of myself do I want to be? What have I done with my time? What shall I do with my time now?
I'm kind of already there, and I can just see that
Mm.
intensifying.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
where I am now. I'm
oh,
feeling that so
yeah.
strongly.
You're feeling that because Saturn's moving through your first.
Mm.
It's not. It's not making contact with your stuff yet. Once it starts doing that around the spring, the beginning part of 2025, it's going to intensify. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the whole my
Mm.
whole I've got a lot of question marks around,
Yeah.
and also just
And
wanting, and I do want to plan
mm,
better because
yeah.
going into the last part of my life, I have no pension plan. I have no like I've got a house in England. I don't know how that affects the kid. There's lots of stuff I need to get sorted
Mm,
just in case anything ever happens to me or Carl. I suppose because I've
yeah.
had to deal with a lot of death this last couple of years. It's made me think a lot more deeply about what I need to put in place to make sure that everybody else is properly looked after. If anything, not that I'm planning on anything happening to me, but it's kind of
Well,
focuses the
it
mind a little bit. And
yeah, it's an act of kindness to prepare things in advance when you don't need to,
mm,
really. Something I keep talking to myself about, but not getting around to.
yeah.
You know, and I get these little kind of health things and they kind of let time's passing, time's passing.
Mm.
You know, do you want the council to just take your books? Who's going to get your books, David? Which books are going to go where? Yeah. And the thought of actually sitting down and just listing them all out and allocating, I think this book will go there and that book will go here and this guitar will go there and this guitar will go here. Just the thought of doing that is just like, it's sensible.
Well,
But
see, in France,
trying to keep up with life seems to be fun.
in France, half of it, if one of us dies, half of everything we own goes to the kids immediately, which I find is a horrendous system. So, say something was to happen to my husband, then my girls would get half of our houses. And I don't think either of them are going to put me outside. But if then what happens then? If one day I decide, well, I'm on or him, I'm on my own now. Well, I haven't got as much income coming in, so I'll sell one of the two houses and I'll downsize.
Mm.
And it's like, but you don't get to keep all that money. You only get to keep half of it because as soon as the minute you sell it, it goes to the kids. So there's all sorts of stuff I've got to think through. It's not that
Ah,
I'm not trying to disinherit my children. I just rather they inherited what they inherit once we're dead and not once we're both dead and not once both one of us has gone.
mm.
So there's a lot of stuff I need to work through and try and find out how it works. It's a very odd system over here. It's probably not odd if you're French, but
I don't know. I think from what I hear about the inheritance tax over here, it's a bit extreme as well. You know,
I
uh,
I found it was a marvel. I didn't pay any tax. I didn't get very much though, but it wasn't, as long as it's under 300,000, you don't pay anything.
oh right. Uh, well, maybe I just have some rich associates then, because I keep hearing rumbles and grumbles about, the government are going to take this and the government are going to take that, and I kind of, oh okay. Uh, I don't have any families, so it's like a load of conversations that never enter my world. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I just got mum's house. It just came to me and I didn't pay anything on it.
Mm,
It was like, okay, which was, but because the girls live in France, mum was based in England and I'm based in France. So there was no tax to pay. But obviously the girls are in a different, I live in France. So the inheritance taxes
mm,
around that, they would be taxed about 60%, I think,
right.
which would be a bit stupid to lose
Yeah.
to be left with 40% of a nice little cottage in the UK. So I need to. There's stuff I need to work my way through.
Mm,
But it's not.
yeah. Well, that's a bit of an overview of your
That's
theory.
really really useful.
Is that useful? That's cool.
Yeah, it was very. Yeah, it kind of provokes a lot of other questions, but it's useful. I need to sit with that for a little bit. It's helpful to have somebody that's independent from like to look at it because
Mm,
I can get bogged down in detail, and look at all the minutiae. And yeah, it's nice to have an overview.
it is indeed. Yeah, it's nice to speak with you again.
Oh, I've missed you, David.
Yeah, good to catch up.
I really have missed you.
You know. Yeah, I missed you as well. I, I, yeah. You were very illuminating in when we were talking in the run up towards the previous American election.
Well, that's going
And
to be fun this time, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, goodness me. It's it's s- yeah, when I went into a COVID ward at the beginning of 2022, and when I came out as this Bond villain throwing missiles at Ukraine, and I thought, oh fuck. And I still do.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
I,
as for
I
what
still think of that Saturn Jupiter conjunction on. I don't know why I noticed it, but that Saturn Jupiter conjunction on right on China's ascendant,
mm,
and I thought, oh, there's going to be a little bit of a change in the order of
oh yeah, yeah.
the order of things, and I don't know that it's going to bode that well for the States and the USA, really, than for the UK, really.
Yeah, Michael Harrison, the person who taught me neuralistic therapy, he was into Oriental things. He loved his I Ching was his big thing.
Mm,
And he always used to say, the next superpower is the Chinese. That's who you got to watch.
mm.
They've been around longer than anyone else, and they're better at maneuvering. You know,
Yeah, it's funny,
and
isn't
as
it?
far as he was concerned, he kind of figured that he even saw the Russians as new kids on the block compared to China. You know, they play a long game.
I was so excited when I started Chinese medicine. The very first chapter that we did, the very first session, and it was all based around they talked about the planets, and all the meridians are based along the
Hmm.
associated with planetary movements. And I was like, oh, I'm finally going to get to put the two things, and then we're going to put the two things together. And then they said, oh no, we get to the second class, and the third class, and the fourth class, and I said, are we going to do any more of? Oh no, we don't do that anymore. It's only the Tibetans do that. We don't. We know that our craft is based in that, but nobody's really gone into it any details. Oh, so when I get to the end of that, I may well go and
I would
study
imagine,
astrology.
I would imagine with Neptune in Scorpio in the eighth that you will. You won't be able to help yourself.
We'll get there eventually,
Yeah, there's a
but
mystery.
it's a long game.
Indeed. Yeah, there's a mystery that's waiting for someone to solve it.
It's fascinating. It's just the whole thing I find is just so fascinating.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
just being able to share it with anybody. You know, I really do have that feeling that I disappeared into a black hole certainly this last, well, I suppose since everybody was ill.
Mm.
And then you have to take time away to look after family. And then, you know, when you try and find your way back, it's like nobody knows you're there anymore. It's just like, I feel like I'm kind of talking into the void, and I know it will pass, but it's
Mm.
not my usual chirpy self these days, but it will be fine.
Oh,
It will pass.
well, hopefully this has given you a bit of a lift. You take care, my dear.
Yes, and you too. Thank you so much. And I
Hey,
really hope you get that. And if you don't find anybody to help, shout me, because I've got to come back to the UK at some point
okay.
to Andover. I need to come and look at my house that
Well,
I'm to
we
my
have to
cousin.
meet at some point, you know.
Well, when I
We've
come,
got
I will be coming over in the next few months,
good.
so I will come and see you
Yeah, we
because you're
do need
literally 17 mile down the road.
yeah, we do need to be in the same room at the same time and say
Yeah, we
hello.
need to do that.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I could come and move a few boxes for you at the same
Uh,
time.
yeah, or at the very least have a walk in the sacred landscape
Yeah,
and a bit more of what I might be able to pass on and share with you. That'd be cool.
be
Or both.
brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah. Now, do you want this as a video file for you to download and keep on your computer, or would you rather it's an unlisted YouTube link so that you don't actually have to store it? But you,
Whatever's easiest for you.
no, they're both the same.
Um,
It's the same amount of upload time. It just depends on where I send it. So do you want
Probably
it?
easier. Do you WeTransfer it? Is that how you send them?
Which?
The hard.
Yeah, kind of. I use a different system to WeTransfer, but it's the same principle.
Oh, shall we put it on? No, pop it on YouTube would be good actually if it's not listed. That would be
Yeah, yeah, because then it's
brilliant.
stored there and it's not.
Because I have a habit of dropping my hard drives and things, and then
Oh,
you
right.
lose.
Okay. All right. In that
I'm
case, then
looking
you
at you saying then if I'm heading into technical,
yeah, yeah. So you'll get a link at some point, either this evening or in the morning.
no
Right.
rush.
You take care. I shall see you.
And you too. Thank you
See you
so
later.
much.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Take
You
care.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.